What is up, fellow YouTube artists and aspiring artists? My name is Mike with Aristotle Custom Spray Paint Art. Today we're going to paint a Dreamcatcher. I'm going to show you how to do it. Let's go! For today's tutorial, we're going to use a few kind of basic pieces of supplies and equipment. We have a palette knife. It's available on the link in the description below or at a local art store. A little X-Acto knife for clearing the clogged tips of our spray paint cans. A medium to large size round object with a thin edge. We're going to use this as a stencil. Some glossy poster board. Something to paint on. Don't forget your respirator. This is very important. We're going to be working with Rust-Oleum Quick Color White and Black. Black and white Rust-Oleum Painter's Touch. All of the paint we're using today is gloss, so factor that in. And then you have to pick some colors. Completely up to you. I'm going to use a few blues today, maybe some oranges and reds for contrast, but you're welcome to use whatever colors you like. We have some Rust-Oleum Gloss Clear. This is a very important part of our painting. And that is about it. Some magazine paper, maybe some scraps of poster board, a few different things. If anything pops up, I'll make sure to point it out. But I think that for now, that's kind of what we're gonna roll with. So for today's painting, we're gonna do this in a portrait orientation instead of a landscape. So we're going up and down instead of left to right for the longer part of our poster board. Let's pop down our stencil somewhere in the center. Take our Rust-Oleum Quick Color Black and just spray around the edge here. When we pull that back, we're left with this. And what this painting is basically gonna be is a painting within a painting. So we're gonna have one scene here in the center, and then in the background, it's gonna be something completely different. So I think what we're gonna do just a simple moon, a night sky, maybe some mountains for the center part. So let's get started with that. First up, we're going to take our Rust-Oleum Black, and we're gonna pick where we want our moon to go. Let's say there. Then our Rust-Oleum White. Just a little paint will do, no need for a lot. We're gonna need a smaller planet stencil, so I'm gonna use this thing here. Add that to your supply list. I'm gonna take a sheet of magazine paper, crumple it up, and lay it down onto our moon. That looks pretty good. I'm not going to bother shading this one. It's going to be kind of a minor detail, and I want it to contrast with the black sky, so I don't want to add too much black to it. I'm going to lay down our stencil like so, and then we can go ahead and work on our sky for the background. I'm going to use a lot of blue in this one. Go in with our navy blue. Trying not to go too far over the edges of our Dreamcatcher ring here. That should do. Maybe a little bit of purple mixed into the sky here. And just a touch of black. Then we're going to go in with Rust-Oleum White on our fingertip, flick off to the side. I'm going to add some stars here to our night sky. Boom. Next up, we are going to come in with Caribbean Blue Rust-Oleum Gloss. We're going to paint in general form of, I guess, a mountain here. Go over that with our Rust-Oleum Black. I've seen this pop up in the questions a few times. Blue tends to go through black and white, especially when it's drying. So if you see some of the blue bleed through, don't stress too much depending on what you're gonna do. In this case, we're gonna be removing some of the paint to make a little mountain. It's just kind of the way it goes. If you really don't want that blue to shine through and that's important for whatever reason, make sure you let that layer dry completely before adding anything on top of it. Now we get our piece of magazine paper here. We're gonna go across and just etch in our mountain. That looks nice. We're gonna grab a straight edge tool. I apologize that wasn't included in the description at the beginning. However, sometimes you need stuff that you just didn't think you would. We're gonna place this down here. We're gonna take our Rust-Oleum Quick Color Black. Make sure when you lay it down it's nice and horizontal. You don't want it at an angle. We're gonna just shade our mountain here a little bit on one side, and on the other side, this back side here, we're gonna go in with the darker blue, and we're gonna fill in the rest of the area, making sure we don't go outside of the circle that we created at the beginning. Voila. And then we're gonna grab some Quick Color White. Pardon me, Rust-Oleum White. Where you are, there you are. And we're just gonna do a little bit of white, kind of like so. Then you can pop off your straight edge, get that out of here, and you're left with what you have here. I'm gonna throw on a glove for this part. It's kind of like finger painting, and I don't wanna get super dirty today. So once we glove up, we're gonna go down, we're gonna just fan our hand across this horizontal layer. When we go across, we don't wanna make sure we stretch the paint over this area. We're just gonna keep it kind of contained within this circle. It's bound to go over a little bit, but that's all right. Touch up here. Awesome, so now we got some nice water. Looks pretty nice. Now it's time for my favorite part. You pull the planet off. Let's see what we got. Boom, pretty beautiful scene shaping up before our eyes. Next up, guys, we're gonna take our little round stencil here that we had at the beginning. We're gonna place this down over top, making sure that we get all the painted areas underneath. Perfect, and now that we're done that, we're gonna go in, we're gonna start to create the base for our actual Dreamcatcher. For this, I'm gonna use a brown. You can use any color you want. I just want kind of that wood looking effect in the end. So I'm gonna use a brown. I don't use brown often. I'm gonna have to really shake this one up to make sure it's up to par. Just give me a second to do that. We'll get back at it. Now guys, this is what a clogged tip looks like. It's all gunked up. When I go to spray, it's coming out in kind of random directions. So for this, I'm just gonna take my X-Acto knife and scrape off the paint away from the nozzle here. Making sure not to press down on this. You could get paint in your face. That's never fun. Once we do that little test spray, it's spraying a lot better now. So I'm just gonna go around in one ring around the edge of this planet. You don't want too much paint as always, so make sure you factor that in. So about there, kind of even spacing around the whole thing. That is good to go. Now we're gonna do a few planets elsewhere in our piece here. So I'm gonna go in with some purple up here, maybe some darker blue here, maybe darker blue right here. Let's do a few different planets. I'm gonna mix up the purples and the blues. That's gonna kind of be our theme for this one. Maybe I'll throw in some Caribbean blue on top of purple here. A little bit of white. We're gonna let these dry just for a second. We're gonna get some better textures if we do that. So we've let our planets dry for just a second here. I'm gonna grab some magazine paper, lay it down over top, and create some cool textures. You guys can crumple it up and play around. It's gonna cause different effects. It's probably the most fun part about this art, is kind of learning how the paint behaves and adding different techniques into your repertoire when you're creating some cool art. So play around with it, have fun. Pretty much all we need for this. I'm gonna go in and just do some general shading here. To give it some balance, I'm gonna kind of use this moon underneath, and our Dreamcatcher scene is the light source. And I'm gonna make sure that each of these planets kind of have their light bouncing off that moon. So for this one, the shaded side is gonna be here. For this one, the shaded side will be here. and here, and so on. So just go in with a little bit of shading this time around. We're using Quick Color Black. So this is the cheap stuff, once again, that you can get at Home Depot and other places. Really nice light spray comes out of these cans, so that's why I like to use it. Once we've done that, we're gonna go in, we're gonna find some planet stencils that work. You can always use a lid of a paint can, that's really helpful. Voila, once we have that on there, we're gonna go ahead and figure out what we're gonna do with the bottom here. So for this, I think what we're gonna do is just a nice, beautiful kind of space sky in the background. We're not gonna overthink this part too much. The beautiful part about these Dreamcatchers is you can really go any direction you want. So for now, we're just gonna do maybe like a cool galaxy in the background with these planets. And the foreground is just gonna be kind of more of that spacey night sky. Let's see how this turns out. We're gonna cover the whole thing in black, making sure we don't spray too much, we don't allow the paint to pool. That's all really important, so factor that in as you go. I'm gonna respirator up, because there's gonna be a lot of paint flying for this part. So we might go into time-lapse mode, and then we'll get back with you as soon as we're covered in black. All right, guys, we are all covered in black. We're gonna go and we're gonna add some stars. Spray some Rust-Oleum white onto your fingertip. Give it a quick flick off to the side. And start adding some stars to your sky here. Play around with flicking at different angles. If you do them all from the same angle, it tends to look a little bit unnatural. Once you're satisfied here with your stars, we're gonna go in, we're gonna start to create a little kind of galaxy or nebula. We're gonna use Rust-Oleum Quick Color White for this. And we want a really, really light mist. The way we do that is by staying pretty far away and doing really fast motions with our hands. The second we slow our hands down, that's when the paint starts to pool up. It kind of reacts negatively with the Rust-Oleum paints, with the painter's touch stuff. So make sure when you do this, you're kind of mimicking the motion that I'm about to show you here. Make sure you're shaking up really good. And we're just gonna go across the sky. Quick motions, you can see it. We're just building this bright kind of galaxy, nebula, whatever you want to call it, up underneath. It's gonna take a little bit. You're not spraying thick lines on here. You're just kind of misting as you go. That looks pretty good to me. Let's go with that. On top of this, I think we'll do a little bit of our marine blue. And for this, we're just lightly misting kind of over the areas that we sprayed our Quick Color White down. Keep your distance here, keep your planets all covered up, because the paint does kind of go everywhere for this part. So make sure you're staying way far away. If you get a solid line like that, you're spraying too much and too hard, so. Perfect. Let's do a little bit of purple, just a little bit. See those colors build up. So we did stars at the start, then we added some white, and then we added some color. We're gonna go back in and add a few more stars. This is gonna kind of change the depth. These ones in the background are a little faded now. They look like they're further away. So we want some stars here that are gonna pop and look awesome. Something I am gonna do here is I'm just gonna grab a record. Anything with a hole in it will work. I paint a lot on records, so I have these on hand, but anything with a little hole will be just fine. I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna lay it down, not on my painting, but just on my planet stencil here, and I'm gonna hold up all the other edges so it doesn't touch down on our canvas. Just gonna hold it up and spray purple into that hole. Gives us this little dot right here. I'll show you what we're gonna do with that in a little bit here. I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna do kind of a couple more of those. If you hold it further back, you're gonna get a different size dot. As you'll see, oh, that's brown. That's not ideal. Be one more here. So we're gonna let these little splotches dry. They can create a cool effect when you're painting space type stuff. So once you let those dry for a second, you're gonna come in with your palette knife and your Rust-Oleum white. Just like when you're making stars, I'm gonna spray onto the tip of the palette knife. Place your hand underneath so none of these drips drop onto your painting. And then as you near each of these little dots, you're gonna tilt the palette knife until it kind of drips a drop of paint. And once it's about to drip, that's when you're gonna press down onto these circles. You're gonna create kind of a bright glowing star. It's a really neat effect. So we're gonna go ahead and do that here. Starting with our purple one. Then on to the blue. And then might have enough left for this last one here. Perfect. One thing you can do with these is you can do little starbursts on them if you want, just by putting the tip in and dragging off to the sides. Give it a nice kind of cool starburst effect. Now, what we are going to do next is to create our wood for our Dreamcatcher. For this, you can use a regular palette knife. I'm gonna opt to use this style. It has this kind of flat, thicker edge here, which is really helpful for this sort of thing. It's a good idea to get a variety of these palette knives. The link in the description I have below is a set of a variety of different ones. It's good to have on hand. They're used for kind of different things. You can use a regular one for this, but you're gonna get better results with the style like this one. So we're gonna come in here. We're gonna take our clear coat and just spray around the edge of our Dreamcatcher. Not too much, not too little, just the right amount. Spray it on, hold it in place, and using this edge right here, we're gonna drag around the edge of our Dreamcatcher, trying to keep kind of a uniform width all the way around. Stop periodically to wipe off your palette knife so you don't get drips anywhere. That is a real big problem sometimes for people. Taking off our planets as we go just so we don't knock the stencils out of the way. Perfect. We're looking good here, guys. Looking real good. All right, once we've done our border here, we're gonna peel back this part and we're left with a pretty cool looking start to our Dreamcatcher. There's not really a whole lot left that we're gonna do today in this painting. So I'm gonna now create kind of the strings with the feathers on them that you see on Dreamcatchers. And the way we're gonna do that is just by kind of picking our lines where we want them. We're gonna clear coat those areas just to free up that paint again. And now this part can be a little bit tricky. I suggest holding your palette knife really close to the tip. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna draw in a little X, boom, and then one down by the corner. We're gonna create that on the other side as well. And once we have the X, it's gonna be a string coming from every axis of that X. So, gravity will hang kind of rope and strings in a straight line. You wanna make sure you kind of replicate that. There's a couple ways to do it. The guaranteed way to get a nice straight line is to use a straight edge kind of like this. The downside is that it's pretty long and we don't want them all to go down as much. So what we're gonna use is just our palette knife. We're gonna hold the edge like this, go to the edge of our X here, and just drag down. None of this has to be perfect, guys. Don't overthink it. You're still learning, I'm still learning. And this is supposed to be fun, so make sure, above all else, when you're painting, you're having a good time. Don't stress about making it absolutely perfect. So that's what we're left with. The rope bit here definitely doesn't look perfect, and that's totally all right. It kind of looks rustic. It's supposed to be an artisan created thing, a Dreamcatcher anyway, so no worries there. Now we're gonna go in with our other palette knife here. Do a quick lap of clear coat. We're gonna create some feathers. So the way I do that is I just go down the edge here, swoop and flick, all the way down. And you're gonna switch sides eventually And do the same for the other side of each feather. Now I'm gonna rotate onto the other side here to help me facilitate this easier. Let's go in and do the other side of our feathers. I missed this one altogether. It looks really good. I'm pretty happy with the result we got out of this one. Let's check out our last planet up here. Got a little bit of the planet ring that happens from not letting your planets dry enough before adding the stencil. Just gonna go in with the quick color black. Just fill in that ring. Make that planet look nice and good. I'm actually gonna go ahead, just add a little bit more shading to all the planets because I think they could use a little bit more depth. We really want these planets to kind of fade into the back of the sky there. Not really satisfied with this star here, so we're gonna go ahead and do something to make it look a little bit better. Awesome, so for this part here, I'm going to take my quick color white. I'm gonna lay this, not lay it down, but just hold it above, and I'm going to run my quick color across the edge here of my palette tool. Gives us this kind of starburst effect. I'm gonna fill it in. Gonna add actually to this one as well. And hey, what the heck, just for uniformity's sake, let's do our final star up here in the same way. When you're doing that technique, just give you a little bit more of a closer up viewpoint of it. You're spraying like this, you're spraying onto this part here of the straight edge, and the paint that deflects off of that onto your image is actually what creates those nice lines. So practice this on a separate piece of paper before you get into it. It's a little bit of an advanced technique, but super nice in creating these starburst, sunburst looking effects. I'm gonna call it pretty much a wraps for this one. Obviously, we're gonna clear coat our painting here. We're also going to make sure we sign it. Voila, guys, that's how you create a Dreamcatcher for spray paint art. If you like this video, please hit the like button. It definitely helps me out a lot. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. We're doing lots of tutorials. We're exploring this awesome art form, and I really appreciate you guys watching. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video.